LinkedIn. And today on Power On Show, our special guest is Rob Wolf. Now, Rob started learning Power BI at the age of 59, and he recently presented at our global Power BI conference a session on empowering the sales manager using Power BI. Now, the session was much loved, and you can actually watch the full recording if you like by going to powerbiconference.com/2022. But today, we want to go a bit behind the scenes and ask Rob about his life. How did he get started? How did he get here? And where is he headed next? So, Rob, I have this line. So one day, I was doing a live session with our students, and and somebody joked, and they said, "Ooh, when I grow up, I want to be like Avi." I got a great chuckle, and of course, what was funny was that these were all grown-ups, right? But man, that moment was something because I look back to that and it's like, what happens to us? What happens to us? Like when you were young, when we were a child, right? I mean, all paths are open. It's like, yeah, who do I want to be? And we're in this mode of exploration. And as you get older and older, it's like no, all paths close, and they don't have to. And I know that you and I have talked, and you talked about how in this stage you felt a little unmoored, right? Disconnected. But you also said that that's a good thing because now you have new paths open for you. So tell me about where you are in your life and tell me what you feel about this and how does Power BI fit into this?
Okay, well, I guess at this stage of my life, as I mentioned, I think you mentioned that I started learning Power BI at 59. I moved to Israel at 50 at that time, and I kind of left my life in New Jersey behind with my family, a part of my family.
Hmm.
And I don't know, it's like I was working for Wolf Gordon, our family business. We sold it a couple of times. Well, we sold it and they sold it, whatever. And I just wanted to get into something. First of all, I thought Power BI when I first heard about it. The reason why I actually found about it was a friend of mine wanted me to. A friend of his was on severance, and he was a data something. He did something in data. So he
Hmm.
asked me. My friend asked me if I could interview this guy. Maybe he can help us out. And I'm very, sunk in Excel. I do VBA. I'm very into Excel. I said, "What is this guy going to help me?" But eventually, I caved in and I had him. He came to my office and we talked for a while. And I really had no idea what he actually did. He never really told me. Couldn't really figure it
Hmm.
out, but he mentioned Power Pivot. And this was like in 2015 or something. And at that moment, when he explained it to me, I said, "This sounds incredible. I got to learn this program." And at that moment, we were on Max. All of us were on Max, and
Uh-huh.
I had a whole system that I created on the
Sorry, what is Max?
uh, 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 Apple computers.
Oh, okay, okay, got it, got it, got it. Yep, yep,
Yeah, okay.
of course.
No, so
Oh,
so so of course they don't. Sorry. And you almost stumped me there, Avi.
yeah. Sorry, in my mind it was like MAX, not MACS.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, right. Kind of like Dax, kind of like Dax.
Yeah, yeah, I guess that's what I had in mind, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So anyhow, so I had to switch the whole everything over to the PC, and yeah, and then we started working in Power Pivot, and then eventually, when I came here, I started learning Power BI, and I would dedicate half an hour every day to learning it. And that's how I do a lot of things. I dedicate time
Mhm.
spots to things. I have the thing I call my 5 minute rule, where I do something for 5 minutes every day, which ends up to be like 30 hours a year. So if you
Yeah,
imagine doing something 30 straight hours, no bathroom breaks, no nothing,
yeah,
how much you can attain by doing that. So 5 minutes is a lot. But if
yeah.
you do a half hour every day, that's even more. So that's
That's
how I kind of
great.
learned Power BI, and I introduced it to our company, and yeah, and it became a passion of mine. I just think it's almost like a spiritual one other
Oh,
spiritual component of my life.
wow. Oh man, that's incredible. So, was there? were there like periods of doubt? You know, and of course, like I don't really know if age is a factor. I guess it's a personal thing because I see people, of course, who are in their 20s express a lot of doubt. It's like, hey, Avi, I'm not sure I can do this. I'm not a techie. I don't know SQL and all that sort of stuff, right? So I have young people saying all that to me, and of course, sometimes older people, and I'm sure I was in the same bucket in a lot of regards where we're like, oh man, I'm too old for this, you know that thing. But
Right.
did did any of those kind of doubts come up for you?
You know, I don't I don't like to say that like age is just a number because it's not. You really do get
Mm,
older. But um, I wouldn't say it was an age thing. I mean, there is an age component. First of all, maybe in my life I could be retired on some level. You know, I'm 65, and people don't retire, I guess, at 65 as much as they did. But
yeah.
um, to me, it's really about keeping a balance in my life. And there were times, I mean, Power BI with the, context transitions and just understanding the whole filter context and all these
Mm,
different components of it
yeah.
are can be quite complicated. So like sometimes we have like this outdoor roof kind of where I can just go hang out in my little office. You see, this is my whole office. I
Mm,
don't even know if I could lie down here and fit in. But anyhow, um, so I would just sometimes go out on my porch and say, man, can I do this? Because it seems so complicated and sometimes so hard to get done. But I was very lucky because I had a lot of freedom at our company at one point for a number of years. I could just build what I wanted to. And that's
yeah.
what I really always look for. I've realized that for me, I don't like to tell people what to do, but I don't exactly like people telling me what to do that much either. So I
Wow.
had a lot of freedom for 30 years in my life, just hanging out, figuring
Yeah.
out cool things to do for our company, making things work on a financial level. And that's what I did. And I kind of want to find that again. I mean, I know that's kind of crazy because how many times do you get that lucky? So I'm working for my son. I'm with my son right now. And
Yeah. But
uh,
wait, tell me about
yeah.
that again. You said I want to find that again. Tell me again what that is because I feel like you can't have it. Yeah.
What it is you just kind of work and
Mm,
you can be creative. One of the things about Power
yeah.
BI for me, it's like an art. It's your art.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you express yourself through it. And yeah, and so I like my art, and I like to
Yeah.
do it. And
Yeah.
I don't like people telling me how to do it so much. I like them to tell me, oh, we need this.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't, even when I was a consultant a little bit for one job, and they just kind of very narrowed down the scope of what we were doing. It was a little painful. But yeah, I just kind of like to be free and create and bring things to the table that people didn't expect or they didn't realize they could have and produce information like that. So that's kind of even what I do with my son to some degree. And right now I'm realizing, I mean, this is a little, I don't know. I don't know if you want to hear all this stuff, but
I do. I
uh,
do. Yeah. Please go on.
okay, right now I'm kind of realizing like it's kind of weird. I get on this, if I'm ever speaking to anybody, I'm like 30 years older than everybody. His company is called Indie Walls. I
Yeah.
get on there and I'm like, okay, and they're just in a, I feel like life, every age I feel is borrowed,
Yeah.
you
Ooh.
live your 20s and your 30s and you think you feel like you own the world. You're part of the world. You're very integrated with it. But as you
Yeah.
get older, I mean, I feel like I'm a spectator on many levels in the world these days, and that's
Really.
fine. I don't,
Really.
yeah.
That doesn't sound very nice. I
No,
would. Yeah.
no, it is. It is very interesting. I mean, you're a part of it, but yeah. It's funny. This is the second time in a row I've used the word spectator. You didn't like it for too much, but what do I mean is like I'm not part of that world. I don't feel as part of a certain type of world that I used to feel more part of. I'm part of a different world. That's how I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
I'm not
That's
I'm not saying better or worse. I'm just saying it's different.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm not in that place. I'm in a
Yeah.
different place.
I think what you're talking about. So I'm gonna kind of I'm trying to put maybe my lens on it, but there is this Buddhist monk, Mingyu Rinpoche, who has this line: "If you're in the river, you can't see the river." And I feel like all my life I was in the river, like I was swept away in the current, right? And and that's okay, no judgment against that. But I feel like now I can step out of the river a little bit. So I feel like that's kind of what you're saying is that yeah, you're
Exactly.
there. You know, so you're not
Exactly.
you're not saying you respect it as in now I don't do anything. No, you're very involved. You're having the meetings and so forth. You're clearly building Power BI things and you're helping them solve business problems. All of that stuff is there, the tech business, but you're not like swept away in the river. You can kind of step out and see it.
Right.
Is that
I'm not, yeah, that's kind of it. But they're in a different space and that's fine. But I guess yeah, so I guess I don't remember exactly what I was saying, but
this is good? So hey, so in retirement, let's talk about that. So like I'm 44 right now, and but I mean for one, a lot of people around me they have this whole crazy thing they call FIRE. I think it's an acronym for financially independent, retired early or something. And they're like, how early can you retire? Like that's the game they're playing, right? And there's a whole communities around it and so forth. But when I see them, it's living a really shitty life for something like I don't know what's at the end. You know, so they're putting retirement as a goal, and I ask them, dude, what are you gonna do when you retire? And often they have no idea. Like they go, no, I'm gonna retire early and I'm gonna relax at the beach. I'm like, really? You know, you're gonna be bored out of your mind in a month, right? And of course, they're killing themselves. They're selling their soul just to retire early. But that doesn't make sense to me. Like I think in this new day and age, what if we move towards the new retirement that I feel is working on something that you enjoy doing, working on your own terms. And if you ask me, it's like, dude, you don't have to like wait for retirement. You can do that right now. So you had something so beautiful to me once, and we were talking about freedom, I think. And freedom, when people think about often, they're like, oh yeah, you know, retirement, leaving my job, sitting on the beach. But you said freedom to work and freedom to help others. So yeah, so how do you see retirement? Is it like a finish line you're running towards, or is it something else for you?
no, absolutely. I mean, I feel like even my daughter said she's 37. Uh, she sometimes says, "Well, Dad, you're in retirement." I go, "What do you mean? I'm working for Agave." I have another son, Avi, believe it or not. But
Right.
um, um, so yeah, but maybe she kind of slips out because maybe somehow she sees that, and that's what it is. It's for me. I think at this point, if even if he said he couldn't pay me right now, or he wouldn't, whatever would happen, I would still probably try to work because I feel there's a few
Yeah.
things I feel. One is I I feel I saw this at Wolf Gordon. If you can get in at the beginning of a company when the company is still in its somewhat infant stage, then you just can take off with the company. When the company grows, you grow with it, and it can be a real opportunity for somebody. So
Absolutely.
I see that as I see that as this type of opportunity. I believe we are going to make. I mean, I think he's doing an incredible job. I think Indie was an incredible company,
Yeah.
and I think we could really. I could be really part of something really big. So and I want to be part of it to help him get there because I've worked in finance for my whole life. I kind of have an idea of what to do and how to navigate things. So,
Yeah.
and I don't even know if he really knows that I know these things, but I'm just kind of going to do it, and that's how I'm looking at this.
Love it. Oh, and I was loving the part where you were talking about earlier about the different ages and so forth. There's this line. I don't know if it's true. It's an interesting line, and it says, youth is lost on the young." Right? I mean, yeah, they don't know what they have, right? So yeah. But anyway, so hey,
No, I don't know about that. I think youth is exactly where it should be.
love that. I think I do like that sentiment. Yeah. Of course, yeah. I mean, you've heard me talk about, right? I mean, that you're always in the right place at the right time doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I know I lived a large part of my life where I was always anxious to be somebody and be somewhere else. And it's funny because you don't even realize that yes, there's that way to approach things, but there is also another way, which you can be 100% satisfied and kind of hungry for more. Ooh, love that. All right,
Yeah. I
but
like
hey,
that. I like that. That's exactly. I feel that. I don't know
yeah,
if I'm ever 100% satisfied. I'm not 100% happy. I mean, I can be
mhm,
unhappy at any moment. I have no idea. I don't worry too much
yeah,
about being unhappy if I am for some reason, which I can't explain. But you know, but yeah, it's like
yeah,
I don't know. I kind of searched for nirvana my whole life, and I'm not sure.
yeah.
You know what that
So
exactly? Yeah.
yeah, that's true, but it's a worthwhile, worthy quest, I think, right? And quests can be so fun. So of course, I have, so of course, for me at this point, if you ask me, I say that my business is a reflection of me, and of course the style of business that I run, right, a personal brand business. So it can only be as good as me. So I have worked a lot on myself, and I was yeah, I've grown a lot in kind of mindset and stuff. But there was this episode last year when my mom got sick, and I was trying to get to India, and there was some visa issue and so forth, and I was stuck in Chicago. So I flew out from Seattle to Chicago, and then I couldn't take the flight to India, and I was distraught, right? I was crying. I was crying everywhere. Actually, I would go there to order the sandwich, and I would start crying, and the lady was like, "You okay? Free hot cocoa or something," right? So and I didn't understand. So I was like, "What does this mean?" Right? I mean, yeah. I mean, and I think the way I thought about it was, imagine kind of the sea, and the water at the top, at the surface, can be very turbulent. It can be calm. It can be calm and peaceful. It can be very turbulent, but there is a deeper self, right? If you go deeper, it's powerful. It's immense. And I feel like there's a distinction. So even now, when I do get emotional and I cry and I get anxious and I can't sleep, but I think the way I see it is, it's the stuff at the surface. And I hope that a part of me always remembers that that's not me. That's just the waves at the top. That's the most visible part. The deeper me is the stuff kind of beneath. Cool. So hey, but enough about my theories. I want to hear from you. So you said something so beautiful, and it didn't come as a surprise to me because you and I have talked before. But you said Power BI is spiritual for you, and I want to ask you about that because I feel like 15 plus years when I was in the corporate America, it was all about working hard. And I don't know how these things started. I think it's a school system or just the environment, society around us. I don't know. But right, I think it's deeply embedded within us. Even if nobody said these words to us, and even if we don't say these words, but it's like, oh yeah, work hard to success, work hard to success. And of course, in my recent life, I really started to question it. And to this point, I no longer believe in it. I don't think that's at least not an effective way to succeed in life. So I often would say that, oh, yeah, working hard doesn't lead to success. And people would say, oh, Avi, I know, man, I know, you're right. You gotta work smart. And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm trying to say. But I didn't know what to say to them. I'm like, no, 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 that's not what I mean. But then one day I got it. And what I realized was that working hard and working smart, they're both externally focused. One is, oh, I have this long to do list. I'm going to die here. I'm going to sit here and get it done. And I remember feeling that way. When I was in Microsoft, you would spend your whole day in meetings, come back and like, shit, now I have to do my real work. And they're like, man, I'm just going to stay here. Even if I have to stay here all night, I'll get it done. So that's like working hard, just cranking away. Working smart is, again, externally focused. You take your to-do list and maybe you prioritize it a bit, right? And again, it's better, but it's not where I what I had in me. And then I got it. It's not about working hard, not about working smart. It's about working aligned. Now, of course, I've
Mm.
started to talk to people about this, and I mean, like I have no idea what that means. So a lot of people, they don't know what that means. They they never feel they've experienced it. And I think the challenge is because if you want to work aligned, it's aligned with whom? Aligned with ourselves, right? But most people, they don't know themselves, right? So if you said Power BI is spiritual, clearly there's an alignment. Tell me about that. Like, what does that mean for you? And is that like a new discovery, or have you always sought the alignment? Um, yeah, tell me about that.
Well, I think, I had this thing called frozen shoulder when I was in
Mhm.
my 40s or 50s. Usually you get it in like in your 40s or 50s. I think it was 10 years ago. All of a sudden,
Okay.
but I went, what happened is I was on the Charles River with my daughter canoeing, and I was canoeing really hard, and maybe this is 10 years ago, and maybe more. I can't remember, 15 years ago, whatever.
Yeah.
And, and I was driving home from Boston. It was in Boston. I was driving home to New Jersey, and I felt this deep kind of pain in my shoulder, deep down. But nothing happened. Then a year later, it kind of froze up, and and it's really painful. You can barely move your arm, and I was going to these different new age, all different types of stuff. And one guy I went to, he says modulation. He says you have to
Mhm.
have modulation in the way you work your body. And to me, that kind of is a deep thing because I realize that you really need modulation in your life. Like modulation, I don't know how exactly electricity works. I think, the magnet spins around and goes in and out of the magnet. Something goes in and out of the magnetic field, and the in and out creates electricity, something like that. And I feel that in our lives, that we have to move in and out of different types of spaces in
Mhm.
order to have kind of a certain type of fulfillment. That's in our lives. So for me, I study the Talmud. I learn the Bible, the Torah. I spend a number of hours every morning doing that. I come home and I meditate, and then
Mhm.
I learn Power BI for 15 minutes or 20 minutes every day. And I just what I mean by that, it just feels very. It has this thing that has like, it's not
Yeah.
good, it's not bad, it's just very pure. It's a pure type of
Mhm.
logic and thinking that for me
Yeah.
is a continuation of a certain part of my day that's just very kind of pure.
Mhm.
And that is what I feel. And, I know this kind of weird. I don't know. Maybe this is what I'm saying is a little
Oh, well, it's
different.
definitely not weird to me. Yeah.
Okay. So for me, it's just very, and so, yeah. So then after that, I kind of start my day, but that's what I feel. I feel it's kind of just,
Yeah.
it, why do I feel it's pure? It just has it's just like an art or something. I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
a way of
Yeah.
thinking, and
Yeah.
it's not good,
No,
it's not bad, it's just
I
totally inert on some level, and that to me
oh,
is a very pure thing.
yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Of course, what you're reminding me of is so when I talk about working aligned, a lot of people say, Avi, I don't know what that means. I don't think I've ever experienced it, right? I
Yeah.
never chased money. You're like, oh, get this done, look good in front of the boss, get the promotion, get the money, right? So it's like I've never experienced it, and which I think isn't really true, right? Because if I ask people, and I'm going to ask you, is that maybe when you're working with Power BI, has it ever happened that you've lost the sense of time?
Yeah, when I have to really solve a problem, or I get very into,
Yeah,
you know, creating something that I'm envisioning, and I'm
yeah,
getting there and I'm moving towards it.
yeah,
It's like, yeah, this is really when I'm kind of in a good space of
yeah.
no time type of energy. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So I think everybody has experienced moments of that. Everybody has experienced that. We may not have recognized them, right? Sometimes, you need to name things. There's this whole story about how in the olden ages, the blue was not a natural color, so it wasn't seen. So I don't know if maybe they didn't have a word for it, but the funny thing is that they never described sea as blue. Sea was never described as blue. It was like
Hmm.
some weird text. They would say it's green. They would say it's wine colored, and right, nobody would write it as blue. Only when mankind was able to create the blue color, like right, I mean, create it, paint it, see it, then we started describing ocean as blue. So right, so sometimes you don't know it.
Wow.
So we don't
Wow.
there was no name for this moment of when you, and I'm gonna name it in a second. Um, Tell me about another one. Maybe you've experienced it too. And this is where you're maybe showing a Power BI dashboard to somebody, and you see kind of the reaction, the genuine reaction, and in that moment, something magical happens. You kind of feel connected to them at a deep level. You seem deeply happy, and you're definitely not thinking about, oh, now they're gonna pay me big bucks and something like, yeah, you're not thinking about that. You're just in the moment, and you're connected with them. Have you and yeah, it does feel not joyous, but I think I liked what you said. It's kind of transcendent, right? So have you felt that at times?
Well, that's an interesting question. I do feel that when that happens, that it's an expression that it's like an expression of myself. So I do
Mm,
feel really good about that. Um,
yeah, yeah.
I don't know if I can't say that I have felt exactly
Okay,
like, but
fair enough.
I
Yeah, yeah.
totally feel the alignment thing. When you said that, I said, wow, that's right on. I like that idea. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
But maybe
great.
my
So,
dashboards haven't been good enough yet. I don't know.
yeah, and it could be just kind of noticing. And again, right? I mean, so of course
Yeah. Okay. Maybe
the
I'll have to,
yeah.
yeah.
So I call it work aligned. That's for me. It's like aligned with me. And frankly, if you're really talking about it, it's not really aligned with me. It's aligned with the higher power that it kind of resides in me, or that I channel it, right? I mean, who am I, right? I mean, right? So yeah, so and of course, if you get aligned with that, it's just yeah, I mean, you feel differently, you live life differently. So this is how I talk about it. Of course, scientists have been studying this phenomena for a long time, actually, and they call it flow, right? So it's a scientific term, and they have studied it. They have like brain mapped it uh, of when people go through flow, and scientists are very keen on it because and companies are really keen on researching flow, and they pour a lot of money into the research in this, because one aspect of flow is that it increases productivity. In fact, flow can make you up to 5 times as productive. So of course, companies are very interested in that. So but yeah, so flow, the simplest way to describe that, and it is by a scientist definition, so they say, is that state where you work your best and you feel your best. Right. Now, of course, they have done brain mapping. So this is the odd part where, so we think that, there's that thing about, oh, we only use 10% of our brain, which is all crap. It doesn't work that way. And in flow, we are up to 5 times more productive. We feel our best, we perform our best, which is awesome, right? I mean, who wouldn't want that? But what scientists found was that the way it works is that parts of our brain actually shut down, and you need that to happen to get into flow. You kind of get into that zone, so parts of our brain shut down, and that's why these indicators, and that's why I was asking you about that, have you felt this? So the parts that shut down, one of the things they control is a sense of time. So you lose the sense of time, right? If you would be doing something like, oh my god, it's been 3 hours, I needed to pick up my son from soccer or something like that, right? So you would lose the sense of time, right? So the sense of time shuts off. There's a part of brain that controls that, so it shuts off. Um, there's also some of the bodily functions shut off, which is why sometimes I'm like cranking away in Power BI, and then I take a break. Somebody calls, something happens, the wife comes in, and I'm like, oh my god, I gotta pee, right? So right, so that
Right.
part shuts
Right.
off, and then and again, this, I don't know if it happens all the time. Sometimes, of course, yeah. The other part that shuts off is the sense of self versus others. And man, if you're talking in spiritual terms, I would say if you take that away, what is that but being one with the universe? So that's what happens. Now, that one is a little tricky. It's a little tricky. And the easiest example is, so I think I can feel it. And again, like once you have named it, once you have recognized it, you're gonna notice this a lot more in your life, because we all do experience it. This sense of kind of selflessness, where it's just like, yeah, we're connected to everybody, where it's not about me, um, and so forth. So yeah. So anyway, but hey, that's really cool. So the next thing I would like to ask you about is, and we were talking about this, which is this idea of being yourself. And it's, I don't know. I mean, for one, it's like really scary, um, both in like a personal life setting and definitely in the work setting, right? But have
Well, why do you
you?
think it's scary? I mean, because that's
Yes,
who you are. Like, why is
I
that exactly
know,
scary?
but uh, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be too hard on myself, but I feel like a lot of my life was kind of, pretend Avi, not the real Avi. I mean, for one, there's this whole thing about the work-life separation, and it was a big thing for me. And in the past years, I've tried to break it down, but at work, I kind of showed up as the work Avi, and that was, yeah, I didn't feel I never even thought about it. Yeah, but it was this persona. I mean, for I don't know where to go with this because for one, I feel like spirituality, like who you are, what you believe in, has no place in the corporate workplace right now. You couldn't bring that to work. You couldn't talk about it. You couldn't discuss it. You would, yeah, I mean, people would think you're crazy. So this whole working aligned discussion, right? I mean, yeah. So that there was no place for that, and I feel like there was no place
Okay,
for
okay.
vulnerability, right? I mean, I couldn't be vulnerable every time. The only persona that I could be was like boss says, kind of like jump and you say how high, right? I mean, like yeah, yeah, we can do it. Yeah, you're right, goals. Oh yeah, we'll crush, right? So yeah, it wasn't like I'm really afraid. Like, man, I don't think I can do this, or I don't know enough. Like, I'm not that good at DAX yet. Right? I mean, you couldn't express doubts. And now, of course, I've come a long way. Now, when I'm working with clients, when I'm talking to prospective clients, I'll tell them, right? I'm gonna say, oh, well, yeah, I'm good at that. I'm not good at that much. And this one, you probably need to find somebody else. That
It's
sort of
kind of
stuff.
weird because I always like you wrote that book with Rob Coley, like at the beginning,
Oh, yeah.
and
I
you've and
know.
you've done and you've created all these courses. Like, what are you
I
feeling? I mean,
know, but Rob, I'm
it's
telling you, it's more of a burden than anything, right? And of course, because that thing, um, it's the learning paradox, right? The more you learn, the less you know.
what's the burden? Like, what is the burden there?
Well, because so
I mean,
of
if you
course I
don't mind
hang.
my asking, I'm just
No,
like
no, no,
kind
no. This is great. I mean, yeah, I do like talking about this stuff. So
of
the burden, man, it's a heavy burden to carry. I'm telling you, it's a really heavy burden to carry.
because
And
of
I'm not the
expectations, people's
only one.
expectations,
I think it's just that whole thing about being yourself, which includes being vulnerable. And it didn't come naturally to me, right? So, and
right?
I'm still working on it. So, and it's not just me. So I hang out with other entrepreneurs in a lot of different realms, and a lot of them are doing really well in their business. So from outside, it's like, oh, their life is set, they're happy. But they all talk about this thing, I call it not good enoughness. It was like, oh, I'm not good enough. and and the challenge is that it's kind of this treadmill, this learning paradox. I feel like the challenge is that all my life we're conditioned to seek validation, approval, the stamp of things saying you're good enough from others. Maybe it starts with the parents, but then certainly teachers. I mean, in school you're graded, right? I mean, like shit, F, you're not good enough. Right. And then, of course, you go to the job. And yes, my favorite part of a job, the performance, annual performance reviews. Not really. I hated them. Right. But yeah, right. It says judging you like, oh, you're a high three. I'm like, what the F does that mean, a high three? Yeah, I was always kind of the meets expectation range. So we're we're used to that. And yeah, uh, when when I'm stuck in this mode, and it's not all the time, but then the thoughts that come into my mind are, who am I to call myself a Power BI pro? Like, I don't know anything, right? I go to so I look at the SQL BI site or Marco Russo, Alberto Ferrari, and man, that shit scares me. That scares the heck out of me. I don't understand half of it. Like, I don't remember calculate table. I only use it very rarely, but every time I look it up, and God, don't even get me started on summarize and summarize columns, right? So that stuff is like really scary for me. So the doubt for me is like, hey, who am I to call myself a Power BI pro, right? I should be ashamed of
Wow.
myself. I'm being a fake. I'm being a phony.
Right, but the crazy thing is, okay, look, that's who actually those courses. I take their courses,
Yeah,
and I'm not saying that I understand it.
yeah,
Um, and but my thing is, I just do it because I maybe I'll understand a little bit more than I do now, and that's what I'm
yeah,
talking about. For me, it's not. That's the aspect of it, of the love of just doing it. Not I'm not
yeah,
close to their. I'm not even close to their.
yeah,
eh,
yeah,
You know, they're in a different space,
yeah,
but they distill
exactly.
it down to this purest kind of sense, and that's what I like about those guys. Not that I'm
Yeah,
even. I can't even believe
yeah,
how their minds work. But anyhow,
yeah.
um,
Yeah,
yeah,
but I think the challenge is that when I get into that mode and when we get into that mode, we lose ourselves, right? Because again, we're aspiring to something.
right.
So I think, frankly, there's this whole thing about self-help, self-improvement. I don't see life that way. I
Yeah, but I
feel,
don't even think that's really healthy. But you know
yeah,
something,
so mhm,
you know, the truth is that thing that you're talking about right now, which is I'm not good enough, that really
yeah,
has helped me in our course, you know, that we've taken the pro course. Because
yeah,
the fact is, first of all, I figure I look at you as pretty talented. I mean, I see the way you put these courses together and you do this stuff, and it blows my mind. I mean, I can barely write and talk and think at the same time, and you're just putting all this stuff together. And you know, and you're thinking you're not good enough, and does anybody think they're good enough? And they kind of realize it doesn't really matter. And it's
exactly.
kind of the thing, am I going to get the job done? Almost everything I've tried to do in Power BI, somehow I've gotten it done for our company. Do I feel very good at it? No, but does everybody think I'm good at it? Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
you know, and so I kind of just let it, don't
yeah.
try not to worry about that stuff too much. And you kind of really drove that point home. I mean, like you can look at guys in our group, Ian, Greg, those guys seem, but there was a little thing that Greg said that
Amon,
was,
right? Oh my God, Amon scares the heck out of me. Right?
oh,
I can't
Heyman, I
believe you guys
forgot,
should
he's
know that.
another
Oh
level.
my
Yeah.
God, I'm
So,
gonna hide under a rock.
yeah, and Ian, and so, yeah, so,
Yeah, but yeah, so the state that I was describing, I did want to describe it because I always talk about like the mindset. I was talking to my mom this morning, and yeah, so what I was saying was that the mindset it isn't like math. It isn't like you learn 2 + 2 is 4 and now forever it should be 4, right? So I learned this thing. I kind of know it now. I can say it to you, right, so that the approval and validation, my worthiness, does not come from outside, right? And
exactly,
it's
right.
it's I mean, you look at it spiritually or kind of from a religious tone. Yeah, I mean, it's within me. I'm worthy. I was born worthy. And of course, the simplest way for me to think about that is if I think about the time when I was holding my child after they were born. Oh man, if somebody said that, oh, they have to like prove their worthiness. No, like no, no, no. They're worthy and they deserve everything, right? So yeah, that's the state uh, that we're born in, right? So again, but again, right? So I can kind of say it, but of course, I don't feel it all the way. I do get in the mode where I'm beating myself up and so forth. But of course, with the work that I've done, I can pull myself out of it. And what you were saying, that's exactly kind of the line that I use. And my line is, I say, you know what? F it. I may not be good enough, but is there one person out there? And I love this one person idea because I imagine them kind of drowning and so forth. It's like, is there one person out there that I can help? And that is my mission. It's my duty. It's my life's purpose to go find them and help them. And
Why
of
is
course,
that?
when
Why
I'm
is that? Why are you so focused on this? Like, what
yeah,
drives you? You know?
yeah, because here's the thing: what we don't realize when you're focused on yourself, when you're like, "Oh, am I good enough? Am I not good enough? I'm not good enough,"
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You're not focused on others because here's the truth.
right.
Here's the truth that we don't realize: that the person who's drowning, the person you can help, only you can help them. And I don't understand why it works this way, right? But think about this. I mean, the people who join my course, I asked them, like, dude, there are thousands of courses out there. Why do you join mine, right? Because man, in a way, only I could help them. I know that probably 80% of my students, if they joined a SQL BI course, they would be lost. Not only lost, they would probably like hang up their Power BI shoes and say, you know what, I'm never gonna be able to do this, right? So
Right.
so
Yeah.
again,
No. Yeah.
yeah, when I'm balanced, I can see when I can see what my gift to the world is, which is I don't know the advanced stuff, but that is my advantage. That's not a weakness. I don't know the advanced stuff. Guess what? I'm not gonna try to teach that to you. What I do know is simple stuff, and I do know how to break down really complicated things into simple blocks, and I can do that, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
so when I'm dialed in, when I'm aligned, when I'm being my true self, I can operate from that mode, and I can help those people, help others, and again, only we can help them. So I think that's why
Right.
it's
Yeah.
important for me to remind myself of that, because yeah, I mean, if I'm focused on myself, then they're out there drowning, and then you're like, oh my God, no, 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 not the right coat of paint. I
Oh,
need to
right.
change. Oh,
Absolutely.
sure. I
Absolutely.
need
Right.
another sale.
It's
All this sort of
irrelevant.
stuff.
It's
Yeah.
irrelevant. Yeah. It's amazing because when I had to do this presentation, I'm
Hmm.
telling you, there were, I'd say a month before, I
Yeah.
was like freaking out. I had no idea what I was going to do with this thing.
Ooh.
And it was funny because as it got closer, I got more relaxed
Yeah.
because,
But tell
and
me.
your,
Yeah.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
because your
Tell me about the.
course,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, what's your question?
I'm curious. I want to dive deeper into the freaking out part. Like, what were the thoughts in your head? What was coming up? What fear, doubt? And the funny thing is that sometimes these come in not as fear and doubt. It doesn't come in as a, oh, I'm afraid. It comes in as some logical thing, which, oh man, this was a mistake. I shouldn't have done it because X, Y, Z. So I'm just curious
Oh
at
yeah,
that
well,
freaking
sure,
out
that
part.
was part of it. Of course, that's part of it. What do I need this for? That was part of it at the beginning. But what was okay? I didn't know how to do PowerPoint. I didn't know what I wanted to talk about. I didn't know what I was going to do for a half hour. I had no idea. And so I just start listening to your tapes, and as they're going on, it's
Yeah.
starting to help me slowly understand what I need to do. And of course, listen to what was his
And
first
Andrew
name?
Ali. Yeah.
Andrew Ali.
Andrew.
That
Yeah.
was amazing because Andrew got up there and he just starts speaking about these, nonprofits, and he's so real and just connecting with everybody and just being very, very human.
Yeah.
And
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 himself,
everybody
right?
loved it. It was
Exactly.
only 7 minutes, but you were feeling, oh, Ali, he really cares about these nonprofits, and this is kind of his passion on some level, and he cares about people, and he cares about you. It's like, and he's just connecting with you, and it was just
Yeah.
like, oh, he's just being himself, and that's what I realized. And of course, you're driving that point home, and I'm saying, okay, just got to bring myself through these different things that I have felt about Power BI, the different things I felt about my journey, bring them forth into this presentation. And that's what I
Wow.
kind of realized from what you taught me. And I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. So, yeah, so Rob was talking about all of our speakers who are selected through Speaker Conference. We have a full training, and it is a good training. And yeah, and one of the speeches or presentations that we use as a showcase is Andrew Ali's presentation, who helps nonprofits using Power BI. A very religious person, definitely working very aligned. And yeah, his session was simple. It was no fancy dashboards, and yeah, but it was incredibly powerful. And for the record, guys, Rob's session was pretty amazing. It was much liked, and I think we put that up earlier. Yeah, you can grab the recording if you like at powerbiconference.com/2022. Um, uh, boy, so man, this was a lovely discussion, Rob. So so for some people, they would look at your life perhaps, and so I talk about how sometimes we want our goal, but we put distance between us and the goal. And one way to do that is like, oh yeah, but I can't do that. That's not gonna work for me because kind of ABC. And I don't know, Maybe they're saying is that, uh, yeah, I don't have the right technical skills or something else. Uh, but yeah, I mean, you seem to be in a good spot helping people. I think that's what counts. Going on the journey, which is awesome, kind of exploring Power BI, kind of learning more as you help others. What would you say to, yeah, somebody else who's kind of stuck or doubtful, doubting them, and it's like, yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, it's great, Rob, awesome for Rob, so happy for Rob, but I couldn't do it because XYZ.
Well, one of the things I say about myself, I don't know if it's totally true, but I feel like I'm a very average person, but I try to do above average things. And what does that mean? It means like, this mind, by Carol Dweck. It's the mindset. I think. Have you ever heard
Mm,
about that? The book.
uh,
It's a
yeah,
mindset, and my daughter had it, and I just started reading it. And it's a lot of people who are really really smart. Uh, they they fail. They suddenly lose a lot of self confidence. But the mindset, I can't remember what it says exactly anymore. But it's basically it's not about who you are exactly. It's about what you're trying to do. And you don't reflect, I'm not good enough, I'm not this, I'm not that. You just go forward, you keep learning, you try to implement it, you take time to do this thing, you take time in your day to, maybe it's a little bit earlier in the morning, maybe it's a little bit later at night, that you
yeah,
build your skills slowly. You try to implement it, because if you implement something in Power BI in your company, it's definitely going to be above whatever they're doing right now if they're just using Excel or something like that. I mean, there is no doubt about it. I mean,
yeah,
it sometimes amazes me. I work with a guy who, um, yeah, I mean, I work with people sometimes, and they're they're not embracing it. They don't realize what it could do for them
hmm,
if they embraced it more. The power of it is
yeah,
kind of mind blowing. I mean, if you have average people in, you're not
huh,
talking about MySQL learning all this type of intense, coding. You're talking about people who came from Excel into this next world, and you can do it. You can go from Excel into Power BI and really make an impression and totally increase your skills. It's like a somewhat of a superpower. If you get this skill, you are just moved up to another level. Um, and you can implement it in your company, and it can take you places. So it's an amazing opportunity for people. It's amazing to me that people don't even know. A lot of people don't even know Power BI exists, and almost 90% of the people I say I do Power BI have no idea what I'm talking about. But so
love
it's a
that.
very open field, and it's a great opportunity for people to advance themselves in ways that they might not realize they can do.
Oh, love that, man. So beautiful. I couldn't have put it any better. So yeah, folks, sometimes I feel like so last time I attended a in-person Power BI conference and I was talking to a lot of people and I usually help companies and people who are kind of at the starting point of the journey. But I was hard pressed to find somebody like that. Anybody I talked to, like, oh yeah, yeah, we've been using Power BI for like last year or 6 months and stuff, right? And yeah, we're building. And I'm like, oh my god, where, right? So it felt like, so folks. Sometimes what happens is that since we hang out with Power BI folks, we end up living in a Power BI bubble where everybody knows Power BI. But I love what Rob said. No, man, you step out in the real world, there are lots of people who have no idea, certainly, and lots of people who have some idea, but are definitely not using it. So yeah, it's we're just getting started. We're just getting started, and it's going to be a long journey. Yeah, I mean, 5, 10, 15 years for sure. Yeah, you know, yeah. So yeah, that's a great opportunity there. Rob, thank you so much.
Well, Avi, it's always a pleasure getting to hang with you, and here we are hanging, just me and you.
Yeah, yeah, that was the goal. Yeah, that was the goal. All right, folks, we'll catch you next time. Take care and power on.
All right.